Hey guys, Marissa at kitchentablestamper.com. I've got a really cute card for you today. This is our mystery card for today. So if you're not familiar with mystery card at the Kitchen Table Stamper Craft Social, every other week I post on a Wednesday a list of supplies. You gather them, and then on Thursday at 2 p.m. or on the replay, I walk you through making a card with those supplies. So it's super fun. Check out the Craft Social if you haven't already and play along with us 2 weeks from today. All right, so this is our mystery card. And it's a fun little crisscross pocket card. Isn't it adorable? I am also doing a Maui challenge case card. So this is my card from Janet Casey. She sent me this one while I was away in Maui, and I've been slowly, bit by bit, casing the cards that have been sent to me. I love this crisscross fold. That's what I took for my inspiration. Wrapped my ribbon around kind of like Janet did. I have a little pull out. Isn't her card just so cute? All right, she included a packet of seeds. I don't know how she knew basil was my favorite, but I love that this crisscross card can be used for a little treat packet too. All right, so this is our card, and let's get started. We're gonna start with the pocket itself. I've got Pacific Point cardstock for my pocket, and it's a full sheet. So we're gonna start this base of our project. We need our Simply Score tool, and we're gonna score on the 11-inch side at 5.5 inches. All right, so there it is. Then we're gonna cut this piece in half on the 8.5-inch side. So I've got my paper trimmer here. And we're going to pop it in 4.25 and whisk that in half. Now we don't want to put the trimmer too far because the next thing we're going to do is cut some diagonals. I'm going to use a bone folder and I'm going to work these creases here just to make them a little bit more prominent for now. So we're going to do both of these. And what we need to do now is cut our crisscross. Our card is going to come together with the solid panels overlapping in the back, and it's going to crisscross in the front. So you want to start at one corner and then cut diagonally across to the opposite point to make this card base. Ready? I'm going to bring my trimmer back in, and we're going to line up the corner at the score line. So where the score line meets the cut edge on our track. So see, we've got that on the track. And then we're going to match up on the track the opposite outside corner. So we've got a nice diagonal here, and we're going to pop down the blade and cut. So here's the first half of our crisscross pocket. Now we need to do the second half of our crisscross pocket. This is a great piece for die cutting and things, so just put this aside for scraps. Don't throw it away. It's too much cardstock. All right, so the next half of our card has got to come down from this corner to this point, see, because when these two come together, we want them to crisscross. So we're going to line up this where the fold meets the edge of the cardstock on the track. Notice how this time the back of the card is up. Last time it was down. That'll help you remember to can't cut two of the same. The good part is though, if you cut two of the same this angle, you can fold it around the other side with the cardstock because it's the same on both sides. All right, so we're going to cut from this fold down to this point. So line them both up on the track. And when you've got it all lined up, slice. And there's the other half. So here's our criss, and here's our cross. All right, let's work on the designer series paper next. Now you'll notice my card, I wanted the same designer series paper on both of the crisscross panels. I just thought it fit my design well. I love also how Janet's card uses both sides of the designer series paper. So it's a design choice that you can make, but it is slightly mathematical in that you need to do 2 pieces of 4 by 5 1/4 cardstock or designer series paper if you want them to be the same pattern. If you love both sides of your designer series paper, like this Hydrangea Hill one, all right, so let me show you how we're gonna do this. I've got a little template that I'm using. You're gonna take a 5 1/4 by 4-inch piece of designer series paper if you want to alternate your patterns, or 2 pieces that are 5 1/4 by 4. You're going to cut them diagonally from corner to corner. So for this one, I'm going to use as the example the Hydrangea Hill. You're going to cut them from corner to corner. Then you have the piece for your Chris, and you have the piece for your cross. See how that works? If you want the same pattern on both sides, you have to do 2 pieces with opposite angles, because you'll see that when you cut this, if you want the hydrangea, it's both hydrangea and both the right angle on the same side. And what you need is the opposite angle. So if you want 1 card, 2 patterns, you need 1 piece. If you want 2 cards with the same pattern, you have to do with pattern A, the first pattern, side up, you have to cut from opposite corners. So for crisscross card, 2 different patterns. When you like the front and the back, you cut from the upper right to the lower left, and then you have your crisscross card in 2 patterns. Now for a card like mine, if you want the same pattern, you have to do 2 pieces of the designer series paper, and you'll cut from the upper right corner to the lower left, and then you'll have your first piece, and on the second piece you'll cut from the upper left corner to the lower right, and that gives you your second piece of the same pattern. All right, so 2 different ways to do this card. It's a whole lot of fun in mixing and matching. When you've got a pattern that you love both sides, you can get some variety, and when you want the same pattern on both panels, 2 cards is the way to go. All right, so we've got our crisscross here. Let's go ahead and adhere the base of our card. We're going to start with the back of the card, and we're going to glue 1 panel to the other, 1 rectangle panel to the other. I like multi-purpose liquid glue for this. We want a good strong seal all the way to the edges for this, so we can get real close with a thin line of multi-purpose liquid glue. Now we're going to bring the backs together and line that up from the back side and burnish it down. This is our card base. So you see angles up, across, and angles down. That's what you're trying to build. Then we can take our designer series paper pieces and glue them in place with an even border all the way around. I'm going to use multi-purpose liquid glue for that too. All right, there's our card base. It's moving right along. Let's get some tear and tape adhesive. We're going to flip this guy over and go from the point down just past the fold, and then just past the fold down to the other point, and then I'm going all the way to the point here. So normally I just tear that off, but because I want to get adhesive all the way out to the very extreme, I'm going to cut this off this time. Now let's remove the liner and make our pocket. All right, we're gonna fold in from the left and then from the right and burnish that down with a bone folder along the bottom edge. There's our pocket. Isn't that so, so cute? Next up, let's wrap it with ribbon and tie a bow. I've got this gorgeous bumblebee gingham ribbon. I thought the gingham with the playful flowers was really fun together. Look at how cute that is. We're gonna tie a loopy bow, kind of left of center here. I want a nice flat bow and tight knots. Trim off the spool with some ribbon scissors and toss that aside. Now, I did some die cutting ahead of time for the outside. Got a bumblebee piece here. I cut this stitched scallop rectangle using the Stitch So Sweetly dies, and this is the third largest from that set. Got a little white cardstock to go inside the stitches here. This is 1 3/4 by 2 7/8. So let's glue those together. And that's going to make the little background for our badger and flowers. Now we're going to glue this to our card base, left of center, and being very careful not to glue our pocket shut. So I'm going to put my adhesive here, here, and here. And then I'm going to budge it right up against the bow and burnish it down into the adhesive that was waiting there for it. Give that a second to grab. All right, well, that dries for a second and firms up. Let's make some badgers. I love this stamp set. What do you guys think of the Badger Besties from Stampin' Up? It's a cling mount 7-piece stamp set. These guys are just adorable. I'm head over heels for them, and they're going to be super simple to color. We're just going to stamp them in Memento Tuxedo Black ink on a scrap of white cardstock. Oh, he's so cute. And so is she. Look at her little badger. And then we're going to color them with Stampin' Blends. My Stampin' Blends for this project are simple. I've got light Smoky Slate. I've got dark Fleur de Flamingo. I've got dark Daffodil Delight. And dark Granny Apple Green. I very rarely use the brush of my Stampin' Blends, but for these guys and the large area that we're filling in, we're going to go ahead with the brush tip and fill in a solid layer of gorgeous smoky slate color. I like to do little circles, go over the wet edge, the leading edge, and keep your ink wet as you go. That'll give you the best solid coverage without streaks. And you just fill in the big open expanse here of our badger. Now, if you're like me, you've got kind of a heavy hand, you can go back with the bullet point and grab the hands, the toes, the tail. You want to keep that leading edge wet so it's a nice smooth blend as best you can. We'll do all that with the bullet tip. Up to the ears, around the eyes, and that's it for our badgers. We're going to do gray and white with a nice solid coverage of color. I'm going to do my second badger here the same way. I'm going to start with the face and the ears using the bullet point of the marker. Then I'll come in and do the back arm, the tail, So these small spaces where I'm likely to go out of the line with the bullet, and then back in with the brush and do the body. The only time I use the brush on the Stampin' Blends is when there's a big space like this that needs solid fill. All right, done with the solid fill, but I'm still gonna take my bullet tip and get close to the line, down at the ends, toes and fingers. Those detail things get done with the bullet. Now, my little flower, that's next. Flirty Flamingo for the petals. Granny Apple Green for the leaf. And Daffodil Delight for the center. That's it, coloring's done. Let's cut these guys out. I'm gonna give them a quick fussy cut with scissors. Leave a little white border when you cut around. That helps to keep the integrity of the stamped line. Takes the attention off of your cutting skills and puts it back on the line that the artist drew. So just a little border. Open and close the scissor in your dominant hand and use your non-dominant hand to steer the paper. All right, I'll cut these guys out and I'll meet you right back here. Do some die cutting, make some flowers. And there's our cutie badgers. Aren't they awesome? All right, let me put them aside with our pocket and we're gonna work on our insert now. I've got some white cardstock here and the largest die. This is from the Scallop Contour die set. And we're gonna cut one of those for our insert. Isn't this edge just the most beautiful edge? And with the high contrast of the white scallopy lacy edge and the Pacific Point pocket, so cute. All right, let me show you that die set. This is the contour dies. And we're using this largest one right here. That's fun. Each one has a little different edge. So here's a solid scallop with a stitch. Here's a little slit scallop. And this one's fun because you can run ribbon through and things like that. This one's got a pierced edge decoration and a scallop. And then this one's got an eyelet edge. I love this one for sentiments. Such a great die set. All right, let's cut it. To get the best cut on one pass, you want to put your die so that it goes in with a corner first. That will take the pressure and spread it out across the die instead of like hitting a speed bump. You don't want to put either of the straight edges, whether it's the long edge or the shorter edge. You don't want it to hit on an edge first. Run it in on the corner and you'll get the cleanest cuts for your scallops. And I do like to do this one by itself. You know, if you hang around Kitchen Table Stamper, you know how much I love to see how much I can do in one pass. But for this die, it's particularly important that you just let it be by itself. Did you see how that cut completely and clean? It cut each of the little scallops completely and clean, and they just fall out. All right, so a couple of tips to make a big difference in the way this die cuts for you. Let me clean away these little ends and we'll set up our next round of die cutting. All right, all clear. Now we're gonna set up our pierced blooms. I've got one of everything left to cut. I did them ahead of time, but we're gonna use our little scraps and do our pierced bloom flowers. We've got the sprout on Granny Apple Green. We've got the flower centers on Pacific Point. We've got the small pierced bloom on Poppy Parade. We're gonna do the large pierced bloom on Flirty Flamingo. And we've got a little scalloped bloom, a detail for the center of our flower. We're gonna do that on a little white scrap. And then last, we need the flower centers for our Poppy Parade flower, our bumblebee. So we got bumblebee. Now, you're gonna need multiples, 3 of this one, 2 of this one, 5 leaves, for this particular project, there will be a printable project sheet on the blog. If you're watching on the blog, it's right below the embedded video. You'll see a link that says click here to get your project sheet, and it'll list out what colors and how many of each you need to cut. It'll also have the measurements for the project, and it's all printable, so no need to scramble to write it down. You can just print the project sheet. If you're watching on YouTube, look in the description. You'll see Badger Besties, Crisscross, project sheet details or project details. Click here, and the project details, click here, will take you to the blog. All right, we've got our parts cut, and I've got some that are already done for us ahead of time right here. Let's gather our pieces and build our flowers. Okay, I'm back with all of our die cut pieces. You can see I've put some together ahead of time. Look at this. I wanted to show you this gorgeous die set. So this is all the pieces that come in this Pierced Blooms dies that we did not use. It's got this gorgeous mix and matchable leaves, stems, labels, bows, different flower shapes. These are the ones that we used today. Just the tip of the iceberg of this gorgeous die set. It is one of my favorites. All right, so we've got our Poppy Parade bloom. We're gonna multi-purpose liquid glue in the center and add a bumblebee flower. We got 3 of those for our design today. And then our Flirty Flamingo flower, little glue in the center, and then this scallopy flower layer goes right in. And then our Pacific Point flower center, little glue, and stack. So now we've built our 5 flowers for our pocket. Let's start with our inside. For the pull-out tab, we want 1 Poppy Parade bloom and 1 Flirty Flamingo bloom and 1 leaf sprout. We'll slide the rest aside for the outside of our pocket. We're going to do a little stamping before we add our embellishment. I've got Thanks for Being You, also from Badger Besties. Some Memento Tuxedo black ink. Let's just stamp our little greeting along the bottom of our insert. I'm aiming for about 3/8 to 1/2 inch from the bottom and level. All right, not bad. Now let's grab one more little die cut shape here. We need a greeting for the outside of our card too. And I've cut it ahead of time. This is from the Stitched Rectangles dies, and it's this skinniest little greeting strip. It's about 1/2 inch by 2.5 inches. We're gonna stamp Happy Day from Badger Besties right in the center of that little strip. So cute. All right, now we can get the ink pad out of the way and decorate our pull tab. I'm going to use dimensionals for my Flirty Flamingo flower and multi-purpose liquid glue for the smaller flower and sprig. What you want to do is make sure that your adhesive does not go past the scallop. So I start out with 1 right along the edge and then add a couple more after the flower's in place, and then I know that there's no sticky on the back side of my tab. I can bring in a little multi-purpose liquid glue here and slide our Poppy Parade bloom right under. And then for this guy, I think I might have used both adhesives. Yes, I did. So let's stick with that. I like the dimension of that. We're gonna add a little multi-purpose liquid glue on the leaf, and then a little Stampin' Dimensional on the other leaf. And then let's go ahead and tuck that guy in between the 2 blooms and adhere it to the card. Isn't that cute? All right, tuck it into our pocket. And you'll notice that this edge of the Flirty Flamingo flower is going to slide over on the outside of the pocket. And let's grab our badgers and our flowers and decorate the outside. So the first thing we want to do is kind of get our ribbon in order. We want the loops towards the frame and the tails towards the edge of the card. And we're going to come in with our focal pieces in layers. We're going to start with this Flirty Flamingo flower. We're going to put a dimensional on back, and we're going to kind of bunch one of the edges right up to the knot on the bow. See that? Then our smaller blooms go on with multi-purpose liquid glue. They're going to get kind of tucked underneath the Flirty Flamingo one. Next, we've got our leaves, and we want to be careful here because we don't want anything to glue our card closed. So watch where you're putting your adhesive. You're going to move kind of quickly here so that you can lift and tuck things. Don't want to go past the edge of the bottom of the card here. So as we put this little sprig in, we're going to be careful not to go past the edge. All right, then we've got another little sprig here. This one we're going to do with liquid glue on one side and a Stampin' Dimensional on the other, like we did in the tag, or the pull-out, the insert. And we'll do flat, kind of bumped. One more. This one we're going to do bumped up. So we need two little minis, one on each of the sprigs. And then we're going to pop that guy in over here. It's so cute. Now we want our happy day to line up over our knot. We're going to try to avoid that knot because that's going to be the thickest part of our card. And if we can avoid that knot, that's awesome. Little multi-purpose liquid glue right to the Flirty Flamingo flower. And come in with a dimensional on either end of the banner so that it's up at the same level as the Flirty Flamingo flower on the ends. And then our badgers need some dimensionals. Make sure our little guy isn't going to go off the edge. We got to watch his little tail. And we'll add a few dimensionals to the back of him. And a tiny bit of liquid glue on this hand right here where it's going to overlap the banner, which is already up on dimensionals. And we'll put him in just where we want him. And then this one in with some dimensionals. All right, our little badger. So cute. Now that we've got everybody in place and we know our ribbon is good, we can give it a little finesse and a trim, and we are nearly done. What do you think of the pocket card? Crisscross pocket card. I hope you had fun today. I don't do diagonals very often, or triangles, so this one was really a fun challenge for me. Here's my inside pocket. And then here's the inspiration card from Janet. Thank you so much, Janet, for the inspiration to get out of my comfort zone and try this crisscross card. If you guys have any questions about the project, you can email Marisa at kitchentablestamper.com and shop Stampin' Up 24/7. Pick up your Badger Besties stamp set. Buzz over to marisaalvarez.stampinup.net. Thanks for watching.